DNA testing is a process that determines genetic relationships between people, as well as vulnerabilities to certain diseases. And over the last few years, in-home DNA testing companies such as 23andMe and Ancestry have grown to be hugely popular. By sending a saliva sample through the mail, these companies can tell you your ancestry, certain disease traits, as well as other characteristics. But there are a few misconceptions about these DNA testing kits, as well as the information you're consenting to sharing with these companies. So, let's talk about a few of those. How companies determine your genetic ancestry. DNA testing companies can't actually determine your exact ancestral country of origin. What they can determine is if your DNA sequences are similar to others in the group most commonly found in a particular country. And they do this by genotyping, which is a process that looks at your DNA sequence and compares it to a reference set, which is made up of many other different people's DNA sequences. So, for those people in the commercials who say that they found out that they're 50% Irish, that doesn't necessarily mean that they actually are. What it does mean is that 50% of their DNA sequence is genetically similar to people who are part of the Irish DNA data reference set that has been collected. Two things to emphasize about these DNA reference data sets is that first, different companies may use different data reference sets, as well as different genotyping patterns, so your results may vary per company. And secondly, for the most part, collected European genes are more readily represented in these data reference sets. So, identified genetic similarities to the reference groups may be broader and not as country specific in your results. How the information is used. By giving these companies your DNA sample, you get to learn interesting information about yourself, as we've discussed. And some people use this information to inform lifestyle choices. DNA testing, however, does not tell you if you have a certain disease. Rather, what it does tell you is if you have a genetic sequence that may put you at risk for developing a certain disease. So that's one thing that your DNA information is used for, the results given back to you. However, in the consent forms that you sign, you're also giving the company's consent to use your DNA information for other things. And one of those other things is selling your DNA information to pharmaceutical companies. And these pharmaceutical companies usually use your DNA information to inform their decisions on creating new drugs. So let's say that a DNA testing company finds that a certain DNA sequence is very prevalent in the group of people who also report having a certain disease. So they can give this information to the pharmaceutical companies, and they can create a drug that targets that DNA sequence in hopes that it would treat that particular disease. So the big question is this good or is this bad? And the answer really depends upon how you view things. On one hand, collective genetic information may help to advance health research for many diseases that may in turn produce therapies that treat these diseases in future generations. But on the other hand, DNA testing potentially gives people access to your personal genetic information. And while there are some regulations surrounding genetic information sharing, these are still very much in the developing phase. So, companies such as life insurers can obtain access to your genetic information to help inform their decisions on your policy, as well as law enforcement who can obtain access to your DNA to help inform their investigations. So, the best and most relevant example you can compare DNA testing to is with Facebook information sharing. DNA testing provides you with desirable information, and it also strengthens a community of health research, while at the same time leaving you open to the possibility that your information may be sold and used in unexpected ways by companies. The future of DNA testing is set to expand in the years to come, so it's really up to you to decide if you want to share your DNA sequence.